Material sold as 10 mg of 2C-B-Fly could not be easily tested, as it was in a gel tab. As I have never been led astray by the supplier and had performed an allergy test a few weeks before, I was willing to go out on a limb. From everything that I had read, 2C-B-Fly seemed like a light-duty psychedelic, more of an empathogen by most reports. I expected light sensory enhancement and very little in the way of depth. These expectations turned out to be pretty off base for me YMMV. At the time, I attributed the intensity of the experience to the paracetam. Having repeated the experience at the same dose, I now realize that it's largely consistent and quite enjoyable, provided that I know what I'm signing up for. Background: I have extensive experience with a wide range of classical and novel psychedelics, but at this point I had no tolerance. My blood sugar was a little low, as I skipped lunch. I had no tolerance. I also took paracetam for the first time that morning, 400 mg at 9 a.m. and again at 12:45 p.m. This turned out to be unwise. Paracetam has a reputation of potentiating some psychedelics, roughly 33% say some reports, but with increased headiness. The reviews are mixed, but mostly favoring the negative. I hadn't wanted to take the two together, but my supplier was about to sell out of this rare material, and having never tried it I wasn't sure if I should get more before it disappears forever. The effects of the paracetam were noticeable, but minor. I have since learned that paracetam, despite its reputation for gentleness and safety, makes me feel stimulated and unhinged. It goes without saying that this does not make for a great combination with a psychedelic. 245, took what was said to be 10 mg in gel form on an empty stomach. I was unable to dissolve the gel completely for rectal use, unfortunately. My headspace is animated, but a little foggy from the paracetam and the lack of food, so I doubt I'll notice the usual foggy-headed alert. I'm all sexed out, so I don't anticipate much in the way of the erotic. 305, pretty sure I do feel an alert, though. A positivity, a warmth in my lips and pleasant pressure on my forehead. Perhaps from sublingual absorption. Onset is normally 1 hour, 2 hours to peak. 320, mild stimulation/anorexia, lightheadedness a la 2CX come up. It's definitely starting. Cooking and eating something now while I still can. 330, seems quite nice so far. 342, psychological effects have been in full swing for a bit. There was a little light anxiousness on come up, alternating with feelings of mild pleasure. The physicality of this seems good. I could see this as excellent material for the erotic. My headspace is still relatively lucid, have had some insight already. Does not have the limpid clarity of 2CB. Feels like a warmer, fuzzier, possible more emotional material. Stimulation is quite light. No nausea or body load. Slight suggestion of visual distortions, but mostly just a filter of yellow-green over everything at times. Lends itself to a positive self-image. Tactile sensation interesting, but more on the side of perceived numbing over pleasantness. Some extra blood flow to the genitals. Overall, a positive emotional valence to this that I was told about but did not expect. Pupils slightly dilated. Eyes is slightly dry. Very slightly chilly. 356, odd stuff. Definitely seems erotic. Maybe a little dreamy. A bit prone to fantasy, but nothing deep. Little surges of energy do on my legs, but they're neutral, not pleasurable. Still pretty lucid, sitting in silence. Slight increase in visual acuity/detail about the only visual. 408, surprised that I've been at a good plus since it's not supposed to peak for another 30+ minutes. 418, orgasm was good. Things visually more interesting. Stronger plus. A quite gentle climb to peak. Feel pressure in ears, but BP is 125/81. Dry eyes a minor annoyance. 444, stronger and deeper than I was expecting, more so than 2CB. Interesting stuff, not sure how I would characterize or compare it. It doesn't fit neatly into any category. Getting decent visuals intensity now, although the patterns, colors, and movements are disorganized. Getting some neon rainbow banding. Enjoyed watching the clouds on a beautiful blue day, enjoyed a trumpet concerto with Wynton Marsalis as a soloist. No anxiety or paranoia per se, but I have felt like I'm walking gently with this stuff throughout. Mild jaw tension. 456, this is a kind, but firm material. Honest. This level of intensity with other materials would normally be more debilitating. At A+. 5 o'clock, some neck and shoulder tension developing, so taking magnesium. Also taking some CBD oil for calm. I like the space and think it's got therapeutic promise, but I don't care for stimulating psychs, even ones as gentle as this. Judging by other reports, I think there's a good chance that the piracetam potentiated this experience a bit. 520. Listening to Bach, reading the biographies of turn-of-the-century composers. Absolutely fascinating. Our lives are so much wealthier, safer, healthier, we're really lucky today. I felt the CBD kick in, adds depth and richness, removes anxiety. This has some real oomph to it, not terrifying like 2CE or DOC, but nonetheless it's strong stuff in a way that I wasn't expecting. Not trivial or just a head trip, this has the clarity to keep on task but the depth to get somewhere. I'd rate it highly. I wouldn't call it fun. It's not at all unpleasant, but it doesn't have any distracting pleasure. Serious time dilation. Almost daunting. This is going to be a long thing. Thought earlier that I was glad I had CBD, benzos, and kava kava on hand, if I'm being honest, although I don't think I'm going to need them now. I'm really thinking the piracetam increased the intensity of this experience. 554, its character is pragmatic, not mystical, not magical. 610, Cat doesn't mind this stuff one bit, as is typical of brominated psychedelics. No electrical surges of energy to weird him out, it's got a smooth feel to it. We cuddled and played a bunch. He's stoked for the attention. Think I might be plateauing finally, tapering off the tiniest bit. 638, yeah, the plateau is real. Enjoyed playing with the cat and listening to classical music. Beginning to gain the suggestion of an appetite, if not the inclination to eat anything more complicated than Cheez-Its. 745, randomly started tripping hard again. Pupils noticeably dilated. Had expected the effects to be in decline by now, but they do not appear to be. Considering a glass of wine or some kava kava. 10 o'clock, had a few glasses of wine. I felt briefly sleepy, but now I'm back to bouncing. I know that I'm still tripping, but as soon as the alcohol in the first glass hit it didn't seem much like I was, because of the curious nature of the experience. It's narrow but deep. When the small part of my consciousness that was profoundly altered was smoothed over, I didn't subjectively feel like I was tripping hard, although I know I am. I'm quite hungry, having done a poor job of eating a bowl of ramen earlier, too spicy. Just took 2 Benadryl and an ibuprofen to help me sleep hopefully. 10:15 pupils still huge. This is going to be a long thing. This surprises me. I expected the intensity to be increased by the piracetam, but not the duration. I can't see why it would affect the pharmacokinetics. 10:18 went to bed, fell asleep in under 10 minutes, slept soundly and restfully. I woke at 8 a.m. with a slight headache and a little bit of fog, but no more than could be expected from oversleeping, wine, or Benadryl alone. TL, doctor, warm and positive, stern and strong, paradoxically light and deep, not fun, at least at this dose and alone, but not challenging, hints of anxiety on come up, but possibly therapeutic, not particularly visual. 2C-B-Fly, 10 mg orally, not a casual thing. I was going to take 5 mg of the material after the last experience, and probably will explore that level again in the future, but was persuaded by my friend to join him at 10 mg. I feel that the intensity of the last experience would have been fine if I had been expecting it. Background: it's a little cold and drizzly and wintry outside, so we probably won't walk to the museum today. I'm a little chilly already, and this psychedelic tends to be better for summer because of its chilliness, so I'm going to ramp up the heat. I wasn't really in the mood for a psychedelic, but I wasn't opposed to one either. I'm a bit sore and uncomfortable from yesterday's workout, which tends to bug me when I'm on psychedelics, especially ones that are more physical and less dissociative. I would have preferred one in which I could go deeper and be immersed like ayahuasca, but I will happily settle for exploring this new space with my friend. My blood sugar was a little low upon waking at 8:30 today, so I had an uncharacteristically heavy breakfast of tater tots, sautéed squash, and an egg with a café au lait. The last psychedelic I had was Mal 2 weeks ago, so no tolerance is expected, except some to alcohol possibly, but not likely, no other drugs/medications in my system to interact. 11:46 took a gel tab advertised as containing 10 mg of 2C-B-Fly from the same batch as before. Stomach feels full. Here's hoping that's not a problem. 11:54 feel a little tiny bit altered, but it's almost certainly just my blood sugar trying to normalize with the tide of calories and caffeine at war with each other. 12:30 at A+/. Can't say why. Decide to tidy my place to make it more serene. I turn off my phone. 1237 at A+. 1250 still at A+. Starting to feel hungry, surprisingly. Biting on my lips like I have low blood sugar. Might actually need to eat something. Maybe I'll drink some carrot juice. Tiny hint of jaw tension. 112 I am pleased with the fact that this does not have any unpleasant stimulation. I'm not groggy, so obviously there is some stimulation, but this is as close to neutral as any I can think of. Come up was also the gentlest and easiest of just about anything, even easier than BK2CB and low-dose DOC as I vaguely remember. My friend is dissatisfied with his 10 mg, and boosted with another 5 mg and will contemplate another 5 mg. He doesn't want the classic P underdose, where you're too altered to enjoy your normal activities, but not altered enough to enjoy the space, to taint his view on 2C-B-Fly. Were we not feeling out the material, it would be possible to boost this with something else like 2CD. But what's the point in that when you're trying to see what this material has to offer? He seems less happy than usual due to his continued gastric issues from earlier. This is still sub-museum level for me. I could easily go out and about with no hesitation and frankly only minor enhancement. He's getting minor color enhancement. I'm getting nothing, really just a mood-enhanced slightly fuzzy plus. 125 one hit of pot apparently evened my friend out and enhanced his visual swimminess. The effects for me are still continuing to climb organically. I expect a long come up because of the large breakfast and full stomach. 134 My friend's poor assessment of the drug's headspace earlier has made me want to spend time away from him so that I can return to enjoying the space and not get stuck dwelling on his bad vibes. Just after I set up another room for him with music and dim light and candles, he exclaimed, "I'm not sure if I should have had that hit of pot. I can already feel the second dose coming on and I feel like I may be in for a ride. It's just that I was in the same spot, psychologically, for so long. Live and learn. Nonetheless, I really want some time by myself to get back to enjoying the space. Needless to say, this is no empathogen." 139, still feeling kinda hungry after that carrot juice. Going to snack on some cookies. I think I'm annoyed that this seems to happen often with my friend, and any substance with long, drawn-out come up, moxie, mescaline, and mall come to mind immediately. 154 still kind of annoyed. It's somatic, though, upon reflection. I wonder if it's a variation on the embodied emotional pain theme that I often get on psychedelic come-ups. Or could it be that the tactile enhanced awareness just makes me hyper-aware of how sore I am all over? I think this is the peak/plateau. Light plus. 2 o'clock decide to take 2 ibuprofen and some nitrous oxide, hoping it might improve my mood enough to want to hang out if my body isn't so sore. Got some subtle nausea from the 2 cookies. 235 The nitrous seems to have kicked things up a notch or so. I'm solidly plus now. This is the peak. Still, it's possible that this may be an underdose for me. Surprisingly, my friend is happy with where he's at with what this material offers at 15 to 18 mg. My friend says that nitrous usually makes me lost for roughly 5 minutes. He's actually getting the occasionally enjoyable visual, too. He thinks the space offers some therapeutic benefit, but that it's an uber lightweight psychedelic. It's definitely not at all erotic for me this go around, although that may have something to do with the muscle discomfort. I find the soreness distracting, and the ibuprofen hasn't yet helped. I may end up going with kratom or kava, but not yet with this mild nausea. 247 Realize that I just now hit the peak, and that all of the rest was just come up issues. Solid plus. Don't know if the nitrous was a coincidence or not, and it's coincidence with this. Pleasant, dreamy headspace. Fuzzy, cool tactile sensations. Some neck tension and receding nausea. Glad I did not redose, not that I'd considered it. My pupils are finally dilated. My friends were an hour ago. 417 Wow, there's a lot of notes I want to take down here. I'm still mid-peak, getting more visuals now than before. They are not very developed, either open or closed eye, more 2CB/BK2CB like generic pastel to neon palette distortions or generic shimmering of pattern surfaces. Getting lost in them feels like I'm getting pulled into a psychic void, a deeper plus territory that doesn't seem fruitful. The depth here feels like the derangement of cognition I get from 2CXs rather than the more insightful spiritual/narrative psycholysis I get from entheogens like ayahuasca or psilocin. I can step back from it to a more lucid terrain at will, making this a fairly plastic substance in terms of depth. I feel like I could manage at an art museum or get totally lost in myself either way. Dosage? This seems like a good dosage. Part of me wanted to take 5 mg more for increased visuals or tactile sensations. There's something to that. That said, since I don't personally get much from the psychic space it's pushing me into, I don't know that I want to journey deeper into derangement without insight. I appreciate the plasticity of the space at this dosage, and feel it's probably best not to push this further into the other direction. I think I'll stick with my old standards for deep explorations. My friend, on the other hand, highly recommends that I try it again at 15 milligrams, as that apparently pushed him into one of his all-time favorite psychedelic spaces, certainly the most visual. Despite the fact that I did not feel any hint of the erotic, I suggested naked cuddling. This led to some of the most spectacular intimacy and sex I've had on a psychedelic. Interestingly, I do not feel like it enhanced my empathy in as powerful a way as some other psychedelics like Mol or Moxie. It was more like 2C-B in this respect, which is not empathogenic at all for me. It also thoroughly blunted tactile sensation of typical erogenous zones, although I enjoyed the stimulation symbolically. Normally less sensitive tissue was hypersensitive, though. The nausea and neck tension and other side effects have mostly subsided, and the sex certainly eliminated the feelings of chilliness. I drank some water, and that caused my stomach to be all uncertain again, which is a drag as I could probably use the water. Discomfort from the heat, sure, but I don't feel there's a risk of overheating as with Mol. 436 Taking notes is not especially easy. My friend is enjoying the visuals with pixel graphics. Everything has a layered effect for him, with boxes floating out in space in front of the screen. My visuals are still the subtle 2C-B pastel color palette. We're both impressed by the strength and duration of this experience. I see why I was alarmed when I took this with paracetam, and why it seemed unfriendly. That was a terrible combination. The cat does not appear to approve of the 2C-B-Fly this time. My mood is good, as it was when I started. I'd say it has a positive side, but the mental challenge of it could be sinister. I definitely like to try this again at a 5 mg dose. My friend said that he would also like to try this at the low end of the spectrum, although he'd have to remind himself that he's actually tripping and shouldn't attempt things like driving. For me, the headspace isn't so lucid that I'd worry about that, but I would have to remind myself that it takes forever to peak on this. I'm also starting to get the yawns majorly, which seems odd this late into the experience. 447 The tactile feeling of this material is hard to pin down. It's tingly, itchy, blunted, cool, prickly, shivery, heavy all by turns, often many at the same time. I agree with my friend, it feels much better when settled in. He was experiencing that metallic, not genuine, inorganic feeling that many phenethylamines have. I feel like it's more of a mix of the tactile enhancement of Mol, the prickly itches of 2CE, and smooth numbness of 2CB. I suspect that I'm actually on the descent now, which is probably why things feel like they have evened out. Better than with some tryptamines where this is the point where they turn sinister. Wow, I have been taking notes solidly throughout the last 40 minutes of the peak. 5 o'clock BP is 130/84. This has a little bit of the chest and ear congestion and coughing I get from brominated psychedelics, although it's not as bad. Starting to think I might be able to consider food in the future. 5:34 The body feel of this is a cross between the smooth gentle edges of an ivory soap bar, but interpolated with occasionally itchy, gritty, grotty, dirty edges. In this way it is reminiscent of 2CB. The grottiness decreases as I move towards the tail end of the experience. It's a little more honest, a little less extreme than 2CB. The aggravation with 2CB is that when I finally get through the bumpy, stimulating, absent here, dirty come up, I only get about an hour or two to bask in the limpid, pearlescent serenity of the space before I'm down. This is a little more grounded, humorous, and organic feeling, but at least I'm post-peak longer. I'm curious what other fly compounds would be like, ones that I like better than 2CB, like 2CD. It's surprising to me that I am experiencing so many parallels to 2CB, as these compounds are so structurally different despite the name. I wasn't expecting any similarity really. 6 p.m, quite sleepy, probably due to lack of blood sugar. Cooked up and am about to attempt to eat some hearty ramen. A little gassy now, but no major gas issues. 7 p.m, at maybe half of the ramen and tofu without too much difficulty. Sadly, that precludes me having any kava now. Enjoyed a cognac over the course of an hour instead, as did my friend. Regrettably, I noticed that this sowed the seed of a headache, so I probably won't be enjoying much more of it. Probably a bit from dehydration. Still plateauing at the same strong level, quite pleasantly. From reviewing the previous report, it seems like stomach contents may not have been the issue. It may just take 3 hours to reach the peak. It's a shame I can't use this rectally to shorten the come up. The plateau looks like it's at least 4 hours. We're 20 minutes past that now. At this point in my last experience, I judged this to be a long thing, then I laid down and was asleep 3 minutes later. I'm glad we took this early in the day, as we can still make use of this space for some time longer. Conversation is lucid and easy during the plateau. My friend said that he would enjoy trying this again at 15 milligrams, but taking it all at once. Staggering it just dragged out the come up uncomfortably. Strangely, my friend is still finding this to be one of the most visual drugs he's ever taken. My pupils are less dilated now. 8:30, been descending a bit for a while now. Time is flowing normally now, as is my perception. My friend insists that the next time I try this I should take a higher dose. I confess I'm a little afraid too. He insists that it's grand. Overall, there were impressively few side effects for me. Another note, on both occasions the intensity of the experience came in waves somewhat. It's not as dramatic as with mushrooms or baby Hawaiian woodrose, but it's more noticeable than most. I'm rather tired and yawny for this early in the night. Also, I noticed a bit of music enhancement when I was listening to it by myself, but I spent very little of the night in a position where I could evaluate it. My friend noted that it was fantastic for music enhancement. 9:04, I'm ready for bed and I think I could sleep, but my friend wants to watch the series finale of his favorite show. Had a cup of tea to stay awake with him. 10:30, I'm at A+. Could have gone to sleep a while ago. My friend is also at A+, which may be because of playing competitive fighting games against his friends online. I watched him sober up before my eyes as he focused on playing. 1 a.m. 3 small brandies and a tall sour beer later, the alcohol was giving me a slight headache and that was about it. Not sure if it was the 2C-B-Fly or the tea that has kept me from crashing out earlier. I drank some water and took one ibuprofen to help keep things under control, then went to bed. 5 a.m. I got up to pee and took 2 more ibuprofen for my headache. Next day, I woke up at 8:30 with a mild headache, but a cup of coffee and a cup of tea sorted that out, surprisingly. Surprisingly, I have a bit of an afterglow, just the same dream fuzz that is mild with this compound combined with a lingering cloud of sensuality around my body. Again, this is not a randy drug, but it is strangely sensual despite the tactile numbing strange mixed sensations. I could totally climb back into bed to cuddle again. As could my friend, despite yesterday's extended adventures. Overall, I like this experience fairly well, although not as much as my friend did. I feel that I would have enjoyed it even more if I could have reduced the onset and duration via rectal ROA. I'm curious to see what it can offer at 5 milligrams, which I think would be promising, and vaguely curious to see what it would be like at 15 milligrams, but I probably won't investigate that given the long duration. Reading other reports more closely, I can see that my experience is in line with what several others have had. Now that I know that 10 milligrams of 2C-B-Fly will be more like 1.5 milligrams of DOC or 120 milligrams plus of BK2CB and less like a museum-level dose of 2CD, I feel like I'm better prepared for what it has to offer. It really was a fantastic enhancer of the erotic, although the duration means that I'm signing up for a whole lot more than just that.